Greetings and salutations, Screen Watchers. This is, of course, your favorite podcast, the Screen Watching Podcast. My name is Dan Barrett. I'm joined here by my boy wonder, Simon Foster. Big show for you this week. Big show. There are three TV shows that literally from January 1st, 2026 have been high up on my list of these are the shows I want to check out. And this week I got to watch the 3 programs. I was desperate to see them. And boy, I will be talking about them on the podcast this week. Simon Foster, before we got on here, was just telling me what a week for rich, diverse viewing this week. I can't wait to even decide what I'm going to talk about this week.
No, I wasn't.
And so he scratched around and he's going to talk about a show which, no, it's not playing at like your event cinemas. No, you've probably never heard of this movie before. No, you're probably not going to be at a barbecue or strip club this weekend with people sitting around talking about this film. But what you will get from Simon Foster is him sharing some information with you about what he says is one of the best films of this year. It's called The President's Cake. I want to find out what the heck that thing's about. Did I even say what my 3 TV shows were of this year? No, here they are. We're going to talk about The Audacity. We're going to talk about The Testaments. We're going to talk about The Miniature Wife. 3 big discussed shows with big stars and big talent behind them. Folks, it's a big show, big talent, big podcast hosts. Gregarious, some may say. This is Screen Watching.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher! Mother!
Secret lover. What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, Simon, we're going to dive right into this one. It has been a heck of a week, and I really want to hear what you have to say about The President's Cake. But here is the problem with that, Simon. I like hearing my voice. So first of all, how are you? Are you well?
Dan Barrett, I'm very well. Screen Watchers everywhere. Welcome to another podcast.
That's enough, Simon. On with the Audacity. Let's watch the clip. Sorry, Simon.
Oh, look, you're absolutely right. It's a week where I thought I'd take a little bit of quality control of the running sheet and see what we could really milk out of this podcast. But the week I decided to do that was also the week when there was F all to see at the movies. I'll mention a few of those as the podcast drags on, but I am going to talk about The President's Cake, which I'm very excited about. It's a lovely film. But I am keen to see what you've got to say about your big 3 for the year. You've been sitting on this sort of anticipation for quite some time.
That's why when people watch the podcast, they see me sort of jut around from side to side.
You do judder a lot.
Sitting on them.
I know, It's uncomfortable.
So much.
All of us.
Simon said that he's the quality control guy. So much so that about 10 minutes ago, he said to me, hey, Dan, while we're midway through the podcast, have we started recording yet? This is the quality that he brings to the podcast that clearly I was not. Anyway, folks, that's enough pre-production and conversation. Instead, we're going to play the clip for The Audacity. We're going to come back on the other side with a couple of thoughts on this show.
Okay. Just got some news. Great news. Pretty cool news. Duncan! Can't tell you what, but it's great.
Some people just have very punchable faces.
Now, I don't want to call The Audacity a satire. That implies there's something funny in what's an occasionally wry drama about Silicon Valley CEOs and the professionals that support them. The show, it's a commentary on the excess, the distance from humanity, the self-centeredness that drives the ambitions of the new digital elites, and these are the elites that have so much direct and inadvertent impact and control over our lives. So the main guy in this one, we've got Billy Magnuson, who plays this guy named Duncan Park. He's the CEO of a company that's on the brink of an acquisition by an Apple-like company called Cupertino, not to be confused with the upcoming tech-focused drama series called Cupertino. This is named after the place. There's also a character in this that's his psychiatrist, played by Sarah Goldberg from Barry, and she's got a son who's this outsider to Silicon Valley, but he's a wide-eyed young teenager, so he's just taking it all in. You've got a couple of other characters that are connected CEOs. It's like Zach Galifianakis and Simon Helberg that people may know from The Big Bang Theory. Why you go from the massive success of The Big Bang Theory to another nerd-centric show like this, I'm not sure. Talks to your agent, Simon Helberg, but you've got a beard in this one, so I guess you look different enough.
I like his hair in this one. I wish I had his hair. He's got good hair.
He's got good hair, but it's not Patrick Ball hair.
No, that's true.
Patrick Ball being the guy from The Pit.
Yeah, he
He's
has
my
good
hair hero of the moment.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
good hair.
Patrick, bowl it up. Okay, so there's also a character in this. He's a Veteran Affairs Undersecretary, played by an unrecognizable Rob Corddry from The Daily Show, or, from The Daily Show like 30 years ago, who's trying to get access to resourcing for returned servicemen. So there's like some pretty serious stuff going on in this program as well. The anticipation for the show has been absolutely huge. Simon, I'm going to assume that you knew nothing about this program before, because when I say the anticipation around the show is huge, I'm talking about industry anticipation, not the anticipation of the normals. The normals don't care about these sorts of shows until they start and like the word of mouth begins and that all carries on.
I appreciate you calling me a normal, and
in this context,
I knew of it fleetingly, but certainly did not have the anticipatory sort of urges that you were feeling.
Yeah, so look, the reason why the industry's just been so high on this is that it's the first show that's been created and run by Jonathan Glatzer. Now, Jonathan Glatzer, not a household name by any means, but you've certainly seen his name crop up on other TV shows. Because the way that TV used to really work before that sort of rise of streaming premium TV, where anyone who was, working in movies suddenly got invited to create a TV program, despite the fact they knew nothing about how TV worked and only really made mediocre movies. But the way that TV used to work back in the day was that you would be someone like, say, Vince Gilligan. You cut your teeth on a show like The X-Files before you move on to create Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. You might be like Matthew Weiner, who starts out on HBO's The Sopranos before creating Mad Men. Jonathan Glatzer, he came off from shows like Succession and Better Call Saul. So when people see like his name attached to programs like that, Bloodlines from Netflix, Bad Sisters from Apple TV, shows that are fairly well regarded, if not, amongst the best of the best. People are interested to know what his show is going to be, hence the anticipation.
Sure.
But the key words in what I said earlier are HBO and The Sopranos. So HBO's got this notoriously intense development process, okay? And we've seen enough from AMC over the years to understand that they don't. And so you see great shows from AMC. You see shows like Mad Men and Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and Dark Winds. You see some shows that kind of find their footing a little bit as the show begins and really elevate their way through. So things like Wholesome Catch Fire, Interview with the Vampire, and then occasional fits and starts of The Walking Dead. But then you've got the bulk of the shows at AMC, shows that have high aspiration that just never quite make it. Here I'm thinking about shows like Low Winter Sun, Hell on Wheels, Preacher, and The Audacity.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
There's
so look,
the catcher right there.
Yeah, watching this program, it's just too familiar feeling. It's got tired details about Silicon Valley culture. It's got a reheated Dr. Melfi from The Sopranos. At times, it's not dramatic enough or bitingly funny enough. It isn't strange or provocative. It's just arseholes being arseholes. And ironically, for a show about the tech industry, this is a show that likes innovation.
That is a great review, for starters. When you do good work, you do very good work. I also want to say, I want to make a couple of points very quickly. We often talk about what isn't Hollywood anymore for us. We grew up with the programmer, the Saturday afternoon movie you could go and see, or we talk about literally seeing comedies in the cinema, which we don't see anymore. One of the things I really miss, and this speaks to your point about what AMC do and don't do very well, is the creative producer. The producer, and this is coming from a point, so bear with me. The creative producer is a producer who becomes attached to a project or might be with the project from the very start, but can confidently and with creative knowledge bring in an extra writer here or a different producer there or a co-producer or a director who may be able to maximize the potential of the material. I'm not reviewing this week Outcome, the new Keanu Reeves movie on Apple TV, because it's terrible. And it made me realize that this needed another set of eyes, a creative producer to come along and say, Jonah Hill, dude, who wrote and directed this thing, lose that. That's good. We can make that better. It didn't happen in the Outcome, and it's to the detriment of that movie. Might that be the case with the Audacity, that maybe this is just, it's too familiar and is lacking potential because it didn't have a strong vision behind it?
I don't know if it's a lack of vision exactly. So, look, I mean, to maybe talk about that sort of death of the studio program and the sort of lack of that creative producer, I don't think that there is like a lack of creative producers around anymore. Instead, what I think you just start seeing is a lot of movies are pre-packaged by agencies before they start really being taken out to studios to really be pitched in that way. So that's where you get a talent agency who get together a couple of actors, the director, the writer, and so it's a complete package before like that development's able to take place at a studio level. So contractually, there's just no way out of that. I don't think anything like that's necessarily happened here. I think it's just purely that this may be just Jonathan Glatzer, like, he followed his creative muse and just didn't really quite nail it. I think it's just really as simple as that.
You know what it is?
When I'm watching this program, I just keep on thinking about this idea that we've seen... Sorry, Simon?
I was just going to say that to me, this is... It has a feel, and certainly for the first half of the first hour of this episode, I was thinking, is this the studio for Silicon Valley? Are we watching a little... Is this being pushed into production in a certain way because the studio is such a big hit, the Seth Rogen Apple TV thing? Because Billy Magnuson's character, although a lot nastier and a lot more of an arsehole than Seth Rogen is in the studio, it does feel a little bit like he's sort of over his head in the way that Rogen is in the studio system.
Something that just felt really inauthentic to me about this is it just didn't really quite reflect the Silicon Valley that broadly we kind of understand and know to exist at the moment. So if you think about this sort of time period from just before Trump was reelected and came back in, and we saw the interest that Silicon Valley has in DC politics, which then saw like the massive investment into AI and tokens and thinking about like Bitcoin and all that sort of investment taking place. A lot of that was driven by this sort of massive influence that these tech leaders are having now by launching like their own podcasts and video audio streaming. So there's a couple which, will stream on platforms like Twitch and other more bespoke platforms that only get like, 75,000 people. They're kind of like community media, but they're actually community media that are talking to the other leaders within Silicon Valley. So like there's this weird like amplification of voice that is taking place, but it's also this idea that their voice really can make a difference. And it really can make a difference because the people listening are the influencers that really have this major control and grip on culture. And so they're on these sort of live streams, they're on podcasts that they're putting out. Like, these are people that are actually getting some decent share of voice as well. And so as I start thinking about the characters in this, which are these CEOs, which, let's be real, I mean, the stereotypical nature of these characters just feels the same as every other Silicon Valley interpretation we've seen of characters like this for ages. You think about like they could just as easily be characters from the HBO show Silicon Valley from like 10, 15 years ago as they could be here. They just don't really reflect this modern day CEO of Silicon Valley who is looking to be an influencer in the same way that, your teenage daughters are. Like it's that same sort of mentality, but that's just not reflected here. These are all just like insular people focused on their own internal concerns, but they're not trying to have that amplification of voice, which you see. And so it just doesn't feel real to me. I'm looking at this, it just felt like it could be any industry or any interpretation of this. It doesn't feel modern, it doesn't feel current, and it's just a real frustrating experience watching this.
A missed opportunity all around by the sounds of it. It's on AMC and AMC Plus in the US, and I think it hits SBS here, right?
Yeah, SBS picked this up early. I don't quite know exactly what happened there, but it's interesting. So we have to watch that on Wednesday. So it's a delay of like about 2 days or something, but that's fine.
That'll be interesting. All right, see how it goes here in Oz. I am going to go with a completely different perspective in my review. Let's have a look at a clip from The President's Cake.
اما الطالب المميز اللي راح يكون يجيب لنا الكيكه مال الاحتفاليه راح يكون لميحه احمد نايف.
تعرفين اللي صار رسول اهله يصيبنا.
Simon, I love cake.
You love your cake. I don't know if you're going to love this cake because this is Saddam Hussein's cake. Let me tell you about the story here.
Tastes a bit rough and sandy.
This is set back in 1990-ish when Saddam Hussein was ruling over Iraq, and on his birthday, he made the population all bake cakes for him. Now, this to the privileged amongst us, like you and I, baking a cake or going out and buying a cake isn't such a big deal. To the poor population of Iraq who were suffering under Saddam Hussein's rule at that point in time, getting eggs and sugar and flour was a major ordeal. This is the story of a young girl played by the absolutely remarkable Banin Ahmad Naif. She plays Lamia. She is the unfortunate recipient of a casting vote in the classroom elections. When her name is drawn, she is the one that has to bring a cake to the classroom for Saddam Hussein's birthday. This sets in motion an incredible journey that she undertakes through the big city near her small village, where all she's trying to do is get enough eggs, enough flour, enough sugar to bake a cake for the dictator Saddam Hussein. Her life is one of hardship. You completely feel for this young lady who has such spirit and such courage and such energy to make this dream come through for the country that is, and for the leader who is under attack. She doesn't understand why there are always fighter jets flying overhead or the sound of explosions go off in the distance. But she is willing to push through this very tough life just to be able to make this cake. This kind of young person against social disarray, this young spirit against a crumbling society has, it's used quite powerfully in cinema with Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves and the Jafar Pahani film The White Balloon, both of which feature very young protagonists on a quest, a very simple quest, but faced with real hardship. It has such beautiful moments, The President's Cake, but it doesn't end on a happy ending, as you would expect from a film set in Iraq in the early 1990s. It is about how this girl's courage and this girl's journey ultimately just tears at her heart and her strength and the innocence that made us fall in love with her in the first place. It's such a beautiful film. It's such a sad film. It co-stars an extraordinary rooster that she carries with her through the entire film. And it has some of the best cinematic moments I've seen this year. The partnership that she has with the rooster is just wonderful. Take your tissues to this one. Be prepared for a film like you haven't seen before. You will have to seek it out. It's in limited release. It's called The President's Cake.
Yeah, in my household, we've been watching a lot of Netflix's Is It Cake
Yes.
in the last couple of weeks.
Sure.
Yeah, so are there any reveals in a movie like that?
No, generally, if it's a chair and you have to decide if it's cake or if it's not cake, it's generally
Probably
chair.
a chair.
Yeah, it's probably a chair. So,
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, but powerful film, this one. This was Iraq's foreign film Oscar entry this year, and it has won festival awards all over the world. In a week where the other major release is The Deb, Rebel Wilson's much-delayed comedy musical. The behind-the-scenes stories are far more interesting on that film, and I'm not going to get into them. Go to my newsletter if you want to have a quick read of what's really gone down with that mess of a film. The movie itself has some moments. At 2 hours, it's too long, and the music isn't that good, although it's got some fine young Australian actors trying hard. But otherwise, there's not much else around. But The President's Cake is definitely the one to see this week.
Okay, well, let's run into the two other big TV releases of the week here. So there's a little TV show called The Testament, which I appreciate is a fairly big deal in your household, Simon. Yep, for reasons which, if you know, you know. So look, I watched The Handmaid's Tale for about 6 seasons. I was brought into it for reasons that are connected to your household.
Yes.
And the thing I found with this program, if people don't really know it, it's the spin-off from The Handmaid's Tale. It's the sequel series. To me, this felt like so much more of the same, but just a little bit watered down. The cinematography is a lot brighter, but it's less inventive than Handmaid's Tale, which was on the regular stunning to watch.
It was.
I just didn't really feel that with this program at all. It switched to a more sort of YA format for its storytelling, but that's kind of a little bit jarring to me because so much of the show is informed by the much more adult show that is The Handmaid's Tale. So when it sort of downgrades to a YA story, like that just doesn't really quite feel right to me. And the struggles of the protagonists in this are kind of just going through very sort of similar ordeals that we saw June and some of her contemporaries go through in that. Slightly different perspective and slightly different scenarios, but like broadly the same conceptual power dynamic sort of struggles that takes place sort of within that same patriarchal issues. The show seems to also struggle with a lot of the same plotting issues that made The Handmaid's Tale just so exceptionally frustrating to watch at times. On that show, the narrative always kept on being artificially stunted to keep the same core of characters from season 1 in focus, even when it stopped making a lick of sense, like multiple seasons in, and you just don't understand why these characters are still in each other's orbits. And so even when that show broke free of the constraints of the book and the initial premise of the show, the final season of that show felt really constrained by the need to set things up for the sequel series. Meanwhile, you come to the sequel series and it's trying to be its own thing, but it's also trying to wink at the audience with these secrets that are only really interesting to those that have read the book or watched The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
So it just doesn't really feel like the show's sort of standing on its own. And then I'm left with like these questions, and it comes from this sort of winking, which is that are the two girls in this supposed to be sisters? It doesn't actually make a lick of sense if they are, based on what we've seen in the series or The Handmaid's Tale. So just stop the winking. Is this show supposed to be a fresh start? And if it's supposed to be a fresh start, then why is June Osborne lingering so much over the show with like this really intense degree? And also, the biggest question I have, the biggest one from all of it, Simon, why is a teenage girl in a Canada that's 5 or 10 years from now listening to the Cranberries? That is the thing that you get when old men who were culturally vibrant in the 1990s are running a YA teen girl in 2026. It's nonsense. Knock it off.
Wow. Okay. The takedown of the Testaments from Dan Barrett. I am coming to this from a slightly different perspective in that I only fleetingly dabbled with The Handmaid's Tale, despite its prevalence in my household, as if you know, you know. So I have watched all of the Testaments so far, which is 3 episodes as we speak here. And I've got to say that while I don't disagree with it, certainly skews younger because the lead character is, well, we don't want to spoil too much if we go into it, but I found that.
Well, the lead character's a teenager, you can say that.
Yeah, teenager, and it all takes place within this I guess I could say a private school for girls where they're taught the ways of Gilead
and we can say, like, this is just known about it. The main character in this is the daughter of June,
Yes.
who's played by Elizabeth Moss in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, exactly right. And the daughter in this one is played by Chase Infinity, who is on a roll at the moment with one battle after another and is very good in this. I don't think anything can be said about the characterizations in this.
No problem with that.
They're all very vivid and they're all very individual, and they all have a very strong sort of on-screen persona that plays well with the drama. Yes, you're right. I was a little bit jarred by the throwback elements, the sort of looking back in the rear vision mirror with the other main character being a skater girl on the streets of Toronto. But I think that's going to obviously play into the storyline as well. I got to say, I'm kind of hooked with this one.
After watching 6 seasons of The Handmaid's Tale, I can tell you it won't.
It won't. I often had trouble with The Handmaid's Tale because it was such a bleak story, and I didn't want to invest time in that because it was such a dour, often depressing journey that these women were on. That doesn't seem to be. Well, absolutely, it should be, but that didn't make it an easy television show to watch. Those elements are certainly there, and there are some jarring moments of violence, and both physical and sexual violence in the Testaments that are shocking. But it seems to be played with a gentler, more sensitive hand, maybe because they are younger actresses and younger characters. So I've got to say I'm slightly more engaged with this at this point in the cycle than I was with The Handmaid's Tale. Where it will go from here, we're all very keen to see. So I am going to go just a little bit more thumbs up than you on this one. I love the Cranberries. What do you got against the Cranberries?
I like the Cranberries as well, but there's no reason that teenagers listen to the Cranberries. Like, that just made no sense.
They're timeless. They'll be there when the rest of society's gone.
Spoken of a man who was culturally vibrant in the 90s.
That's very true. What was the other one? You said there were 3 shows that you've been
3 TV shows.
3
and
shows since the beginning of a year.
What a fantastic show to pair with The Testaments, like quite literally. Okay, so look, The Miniature Wife, a show about a man who shrinks his wife down to the size of a hamster,
Wow.
is inherently a goofy premise which opens some really obvious doors to male and female relationship power imbalances, patriarchal notions of ownership, yada, yada, yada. And we know that because those ideas, when you think about the premise of the show, is both obvious and also B, it was already done in the 1981 Lily Tomlin film, The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Exactly right. That's literally what I was about to say. Yeah.
And so you've got this great show with you've got a great cast on the show, which has Matthew Macfadyen in it and Elizabeth Banks.
Nice.
Matthew Macfadyen from the aforementioned Succession. Elizabeth Banks from just being quite good in things.
Wonderful.
Supported by former Handmaid's Tale actor O.T. Fagbenle, Asif Manvi, formerly of The Daily Show, Ronnie Chang, currently of The Daily Show,
Quality
Zoe
comedy
Lister-Jones,
players.
has never been on The Daily Show, but is still kind of funny, Sian Clifford, who people may remember from Fleabag a few years back,
Sure.
and a whole bunch of others. But the problem with this show is that they're all playing it just like too broadly and over the top. So it's almost as though the director of the pilot, Greg Mottola, who as a director, he's wildly hit and miss. There's things of his I love and there's things which I just think are awful. It's almost like he was filming this and like kept on pepping his cast with the information. This is a comedy. Go big and funny. Oh, you're a Scream. And it comes off as loud and obnoxious, and I did not like it.
Wow. Okay. I've not seen this one.
Also, I'm really happy to see O.C. Fagbenle in anything because I think he's fantastic. I liked him in A Handmaid's Tale, but I loved him in Presumed Innocent, that TV series a few years back.
Yes.
Like, he's fantastic in that.
When he was doing that strange accent.
Yeah, so fantastic. And like, he always brings something different to every performance. Like, I think he is genuinely just like the goods. But why is he playing a character in this that's clearly supposed to be a much younger man in his 20s? Like, they say things about him, and like, he delivers these lines which are like a man who's 25 years old. He's supposed to be the younger lover of the Elizabeth Banks character, and he's played by a person who's like maybe 4 years age difference. Like, it's nonsense.
Hey, wow, you've been drilling down on stuff this week. Look at you with your cranberries and your age differences. This is the kind of research I love.
Oh, sorry, I pay attention when I watch things, Simon.
Clearly you do. Yeah, you absolutely do. All right, where do we watch The Miniature Wife if we want to watch The Miniature Wife?
So The Miniature Wife is a Peacock original series. Every episode is streaming now on Peacock. And if you want to watch those exact same episodes, but streaming locally in Australia, find them here on Stan.
I am very quick.
Did we say The Testaments is on Disney Plus?
Disney Plus, yes, we did.
And I don't think, and we talked about the Audacity being on SBS.
Yes, we did that for sure.
Okay.
I want to speak very quickly about a limited film release this week called F My Son. Now, the F stands for the world
formula,
the word we will not speak on this podcast. And it is about a hideous old hag who kidnaps a mother and her young daughter so that this woman can have sex with her horribly mutated, hideous monster of a son. And it really is like it's a full prosthetic beast made. And the idea of this film, which proudly sort of boasts it's X-rated, which isn't true. It's not X-rated because there's no such thing as an X rating anymore. It's officially NR, as in not rated.
I always love reading the Daily Mail. Every day has a story about, the X-rated thing. And it's just someone who's like, snapped a bra or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly right. So for someone of my vintage, I've seen most things that are pretty shocking on the movie screen. And when something like F My Son comes along...
It's not just your age as well. Like, you're a noted pervert.
I'm a noted pervert, so I've seen most of this in some form or another. It doesn't really shock. If you literally come to this for the first time and you see scenes that feature in F My Son, then you might go, oh my God, I can't believe they're making this. But it's not really that shocking. It's really rather silly and kind of puerile. And it made me think, can cinema shock us anymore? And I want to put this in perspective. The movie that everyone still talks about as being the sort of pivot moment, the moment when cinema, lost its virginity, lost its innocence, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when it sort of emerged out of this underground film culture and showed this horrible violence, which if you watch it now is still very shocking, but is not particularly violent. And the last real time when I found cinema could shock was in some of the underground stuff in the 70s, when all the stuff that had been hidden away from society for all these years suddenly found an outlet by some pervert with a video camera or with a 16mm camera and was out there on screens, and people were seeing really shocking stuff on screens for the first time. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen anything on screen that truly shocked, and I'm someone who grew up with movies like The Killing of America, which featured real-life slayings, or stuff like Pasolini's Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, which had some truly horrific stuff in it. So can cinema, in the world of the internet, in the world of video gaming, can it still shock us anymore? Discuss.
Okay, all this is spoken like someone who hasn't seen Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. But putting that aside, the reason why you can't see shocking things in a cinema anymore is because most of the exhibition industry is not freestanding cinemas anymore, but instead are cinemas that are embedded within shopping
But
centers.
can the art form shock us anymore? I mean,
it could, but they're just not going to because they're in shopping centers.
Yeah,
so
I don't know if the art form has the power to do that anymore.
But they're not making them. So there's no way to verify that because you'll never know. Because in the US, you can't play X-rated movies in shopping center cinemas.
Or NR, yes.
Well, yeah. Can you play NR? I'm not too sure.
No,
but you definitely can't play.
A lot of the major chains won't book it, and you can't advertise it in newspapers and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Well, this is the problem. So you can't play these sort of harder edge stuff there. Okay, so this sort of, golden age of, 1970s American cinema of the, late 60s going into the 70s, where people have been very experimental with what they're seeing. So some, softcore porn stuff was playing in mainstream cinemas around the place, or, that's just not going to happen because they can't play where most cinemas are now. So it's a question of, can cinema shock? And it's well, not really, because most cinema don't have the opportunity to shock.
Okay, so you've taken the question as, can cinema, as in the brick and mortar establishment, shock us anymore?
Yeah.
Okay.
But look,
but to my point, can film as an art form shock us anymore?
But film is kind of so tied up in that idea of, can you make any money or even get your movie seen somewhere? Okay, is tied to the idea of that as a format. Can you get video content that can shock? Maybe not necessarily if you're looking for a traditional film distribution, Simon, but if you are willing to go to some pretty hairy place around the internet, I'm pretty sure you can find some stuff that's going to roll your toes up.
The internet, yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But that's where you have to go for that now.
That's
if you
my
want it to be
point.
distributed.
That's my point, yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm going to open this up to the listeners. Can cinema, can the art of film or filmmaking shock us anymore?
I'm going to close it down to the listeners. I don't want them to reply to us. I don't want to hear from them.
Send us all your links to the stuff that really shocked you at Dan. No, don't send it to Dan. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our kind of hectic podcast.
Except, Simon, I've got one little TV show that I think that I teased, but I may not have. That may have been the first version of this podcast.
No, there's been 5 versions. But yes, what is this show that you dare not speak its name?
So I told Simon I was going to talk about a show that I dare not speak its name. And look, how do I even sort of get into this? Look, during the week, I watched the first 3 episodes of The Handmaid's Tale sequel series.
Yes.
So I watched The Testaments.
Yes, you did.
I watched this program that's a fierce female-led drama about the exodus of patriarchy. And so I needed a bit of a sorbet. I just needed something else just to wet my whistle a little bit. And so I started rewatching the TV show Entourage.
Oh, no.
Here's the thing. If you spoke to me a week ago and said, Dan, Entourage, thoughts, go, my top level thought would have been that it was a show which, yes, is misogynistic and just a little bit gross with some blokey guys being kind of just a bit gross and disgusting. Okay. But I would also tell you that show was kind of funny and a bit charming and just very watchable.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, for the first couple of years. And then it hits maybe seasons, maybe 5, I think around 7 seasons. Hits season 5, and that's when they decided to take these characters who are gross and juvenile and try to age them up. Okay, so when you talk about a show running for 7 seasons, sometimes that's more like it ran for 9 or 10 years because there's year and a half gaps in between seasons. So clearly, like, the people making the show felt like they needed to make a bit more of a grown-up program as they're going on. Like, it's just natural evolution of these things. So I would say from like seasons 5 onwards, where they tried to get them growing up, the show just becomes borderline unwatchable at that point.
Agreed.
Okay, because that's not what the show was built to do. It became a very different show. I say, hand on heart, where's a Bible I can swear on? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing HBO and Warner Brothers that the world wanted an Entourage movie.
Yeah. That was a huge miscalculation on just about everybody's part.
Yeah. I know. I paid money to see that at the
As
cinema.
did I. And I agree with you. I was a fan of the first few years, and yes, it was puerile and juvenile and misogynistic and sexist, but it was also a takedown of those sort of men. And there's that argument to be made that
I don't know. Sorry, as I'm currently watching it, I don't actually know it's that much of a takedown of it. I do think it's a little bit celebratory.
To a certain extent, because of the status they have in the Hollywood system. So it had to sort of acknowledge the celebrity they attained. But also it's the same sort of argument that sort of says, well, isn't every war movie an anti-war movie? Because just by showing the horrors of war, you've got to be an anti-war movie. And there's a certain element of Entourage which leans into that as well.
Just by watching the guys go to the Playboy Mansion
is a takedown.
Means that they're anti-war.
Yeah, it's a takedown. So, and it's funny you bring up Entourage because I watched the movie through the week.
Sorry, Turtles Vietnam is the grotto.
Exactly right. So I watched a movie during the week called Love Like It Was, which starred Emmanuel Chikri, who I first saw in Entourage all those years ago.
Also, her instructions to the series is exactly where the show goes downhill.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, she stinks. I've seen her in a few things, and she's awful in every show. But
You
sorry,
are
go
so
on.
Mean. She was lovely in this film, and I gave it.
I'd never say that if she was a man, Simon.
Oh, God, you watch too much Entourage. All right, okay. So Entourage. Where do you even watch Entourage now? And that was the other
HBO Max.
That was the other thing I watched. Ahead of the sequel, we and Fiona had never seen The Devil Wears Prada, so we watched that, and there was Adrian Grenier, or whoever you say he's the leading actor from Entourage, and I can only think, how can someone who was so front and center of one of the seminal sort of early 2000 shows have largely disappeared? He's gone. I haven't heard anything from him in like 10 years.
Okay, look, I can tell you the things that I guess maybe I really want to say about Entourage was I've started rewatching it. Certainly you watch things, and I mentioned them going to the Playboy Mansion, and I watched that episode, and of anything that is dated in that program, it's that episode very specifically that is dated the worst. Okay. Certainly their behavior, you would not find that in a TV show now. And I don't think you'd find people really behaving in this way sort of out in the world.
I don't know if
quite
that's
the
a
same
good
way.
thing, though.
Well, I think it's probably I think people have progressed. It's kind of nice, but I feel that the show spoke to a certain level of honesty of what it was like to be a celebrity of that sort of stature in their entourage. Like, I kind of think it was a fairly authentic-ish kind of a program.
Yep.
And it's kind of watchable. Like, it's kind of, I don't know if it's a fun program, but it's a very sort of fun binge program.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, and I appreciate there's a very fine line between that.
Yep.
Like, you're watching and you're like, I can't believe I'm watching this. But, like, you kind of just want to keep on watching and you're just a bit invested in, like, the momentum of the program. Like, it still holds up. If you're a fan of it back in the day, maybe give it a go and just run it through for as long as you're still interested in it. Which will be probably when Emmanuel Chikri comes into it, and that's when you'll probably start drifting off. But until then, there's a bunch of, there's interesting action and storylines, but you'll hear celebrity references to people that you haven't heard in I don't know how long. You'll hear the sort of pumping like mid-2000s rock soundtrack with a whole bunch of songs that you haven't heard since then. Like, it really is a great nostalgic throwback. It still holds. And to answer your question why Adrian Grenier wasn't a big deal, when you watch Entourage as a TV show, the one thing that does not feel authentic in that program at all is the idea of him as Vinny Chase movie star, because he is the least charismatic, least realistic movie star you'll have ever seen in some sort of scripted program like this. He does not have the goods.
I get it. The scenes where he was going one-on-one with James Cameron over the Aquaman movie, I thought, oh my God, even Cameron blows him off the screen. He's so insipid. There's no way that...
And look, I'm literally watching those episodes right now. James Cameron, he's made some great things and continues to make great films, but certainly as an actor, that is not his strongest point.
All right. Well,
and you're right, he blows Grenier well off the screen.
the show that I dare not speak its name was how you described it in the running sheet. I'm glad you brought it up. That is a fun retro throwback for some of us. God, my wife would have she despises the show.
Oh, look, and I get why
much the
people
same
despise
way.
the show.
I'm the same with Sex and the City. Like, I just don't get it, and I hate the way these women carry on. And like, I am to Sex and the City like she is to Entourage. So I get it. Well, maybe not so much Sex and the City, but certainly its awful sequel. So.
And just like that, all the movies and their sequels. I actually don't like Sex and the City very much either.
Yeah.
I've just never found my way into it. There's something tonally about that one that I just never quite connected into. And it's annoying because I tried watching it a whole bunch of times. But yeah.
Interesting. Screen watching on Facebook at Screen Watching Podcast, on YouTube at Screen Watching, email screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us, can cinemas or can movies shock us anymore? Has Entourage been unfairly misaligned or maligned or whatever that word is I'm trying to look for this late in the podcast? This podcast has been going for hours.
Every criticism of Entourage is absolutely earned.
There you go, everyone. Don't bother writing in then. You can follow on my Substack page the Screen Space newsletter, where you can get the full rundown about how much shit Rebel Wilson really is in over the Deb, and a few other interesting things this week. Dan, what do you do?
I run the Always Be Watching newsletter. It comes out 5 days a week with 6 editions. 5 days of that is me talking about these are the big things to be across in terms of news and information about TV and streaming and movies and video games and things to do with screens just generally.
Sorry, you go on. Then on.
I was going to say, and then on the Friday afternoon, I send out a TV guide to all the new and returning shows that have debuted that very week.
You got a busy week this week. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, that I do, Simon. That I do.
You brought your A game today. You had some great reviews today.
Well, that's something to talk about for once.
You really did. And talk about it you did.
Mostly because I usually have some hot thoughts and I never write them down while I've actually got them in my mind. If we could create this podcast while I'm walking my dog, Simon, it would be such a podcast.
Reviews, what would you call it? Reviews to be led by.
My dog isn't really a leader anymore.
We just called, really? Off-leash reviews.
No.
We could call it that.
She's just a bit older, and so it's kind of not really quite dragging her, but, certainly I'm the one that's in front these days.
Dragging the dog reviews.
Unless there's a pigeon. Anyway, folks, we're getting off topic. Folks, this has been a Screen Watching podcast. My name's Dan. That's Simon Foster. My dog's name is CJ. We'll be back next week with more discussion about all things screen and the watching of said screens.
Collared movies.
Again, Simon, I'm concerned we're heading into that sort of pervert territory again.